It's time to get started with the Acronis virtual conference, Staying Cyber Fit Despite COVID-19, How to Prevent the Worst So You're Healthy, Productive, and Protected. I'm your host, James R. Slaby. I'm the Director of Cyber Protection at Acronis. I have just a few housekeeping announcements to share with you before we get going. This conference is being recorded, and we will email you a link to the recording afterwards so you can share it with friends and colleagues who could not attend today. Your microphone will be muted throughout the session, but we encourage you to submit questions through the Q&A interface on your Zoom console. We're going to have a panel session at the end where our speakers will answer questions from the audience, so please take advantage of that. We have a terrific lineup of speakers for you today, including Serguei Beloussov, the founder and CEO of Acronis, Professor Sir Konstantin Novoselov, he is a Nobel Prize-winning scientist, and Candid Wüest, who heads up cyber protection research at Acronis. One quick disclaimer to share with you today. We're going to be talking about a potential COVID-19 therapy today that is very much in its investigative and experimental phase. So please do not construe any of our comments as medical advice, only as a discussion of one avenue of potential research. We got a great agenda for you today, so let's get to it. First off, we're going to have Acronis CEO Serguei talk about our position on COVID-19, how it's affecting businesses, and how Acronis is helping businesses secure themselves amid the crisis. Next, we're going to do a Q&A session with the professor about the work that he's doing in general and specifically about COVID-19. My colleague Candid Wüest will come on then and talk about how to secure the work from home environments that we're all dealing with as much of us have had to start remote work amidst the crisis. I'll then ask for our speakers to come back on stage to answer your questions. With that, I'd like to introduce Serguei Beloussov. He's the founder and CEO of Acronis. He's also the founder of the Schaffhausen Institute of Technology, a research-led institution located in Switzerland. Over to you, Serguei.
Thank you. So let's start quickly. Welcome everybody to our session. I'm glad to see that we have almost 500 people listening. Acronis is a leader in cyber protection. The way we want you to think about us is artificial intelligence powered cyber protection, cyber cloud, and cyber platform. We are, as you know, Swiss corporation. We were, however, founded in Singapore, and we have dual headquarters, especially useful in the times of calamities like right now. We are not small, but we are not large. We're about $300 million in revenue this year. We're growing rapidly. We're not decreasing our this year targets. We have completely global reach, which makes it very difficult for us to do business. Every country has its own policy in the response to this calamity. And we do business entirely through partners, and we work with small businesses and prosumers. You know, the picture which I have here is actually an important picture. The way I see the future is that you have this robotic dog on a walk. It's required for the robotic man, and it's led by a robotic vacuum cleaner, because it doesn't have to be that in the future you have sort of human-looking species. The most advanced robots are actually these vacuum cleaners. I bought one for myself at home just recently. Roborock, it's called. It's generation 6. It's very, very smart, much smarter than any robot. So that's a picture of the future. A robot walking his dog and his human robot. We also have global presence. So we have 33 locations, 33 languages we support. And we, in fact, today have 11 countries where we have data centers for Acronis Cyber Cloud. The world is very quickly becoming digital, and the digital workloads are very, very fragile. They can be very easily copied. They can be very easily destroyed. And there are this problems in making sure that they are protected. First problem, it's very, very complex to protect the digital world. There is a lot of devices. Today, there is almost 50 billion devices with processors, which is the number growing by 10x to over 500 billion by 2030. And only 1% of these devices are in large data centers, maybe around 10,000 large data centers. 99% of those devices are on the edge and endpoint in around 1 billion locations. Even more importantly, not only number of devices is growing, but also amount of data is growing extremely rapidly. Maybe around 50 zettabytes of data this year, growing to about 500 zettabytes of data by 2030. Just one autonomous car, this is autonomous car in roborace, but one autonomous car of the future can generate about 4 terabytes of data every day. And so that's more than 1 petabyte of data per year. And there is, there is hundreds of millions of cars in the world. And so everything in the world is becoming data. And so if you don't watch your cost of IT per gigabyte or per workload, that could become very expensive, especially, and also protection. Security is a major challenge, especially today. Criminals are also becoming quarantined, and as such, they cannot participate in physical crimes, but they can still participate in digital crimes. And so everything is being attacked. In our cyber protection operating centers, we see 1.5 times more attacks and many new attacks related to our new environment where everything is digital. Privacy is a major issue today. If you only trust a platform, a production platform vendor like Microsoft, like Google, like Facebook, like Apple, you potentially lose your privacy. And privacy is what separates human from not human, so to say. It allows us to be free. And so it's extremely important to make sure that you are protected without losing privacy. And especially now, today, we realize that with the world being digital, cyber protection is really a fifth basic need. If you don't have your workload operating, you cannot go on with your business, with your science, with your education, even with your personal life. You have to have your IT operating, even to have a conference like this. So because of that, several years ago, we introduced the concept of cyber protection, which became our mission, to protect all data, application, and system, which collectively we call workloads. So Acronis wants to protect all digital workloads from 5 vectors of attack. Safety, nothing is lost. There is always a copy for recovery. Accessibility, you can access your workload from anywhere at any time. Privacy, you can control and always know who has visibility and access to your workload. Authenticity is you need to know that your data wasn't modified without your will, and protection against bad actors, security. Acronis Cyber, SAP as we call it, it has to be done in such ways that it's very, very easy, because otherwise it's too complex with so many workloads and so much data, that it's low cost, because again, with so much data and so many workloads, you cannot do it if it's expensive, and you will not do it. Security, it's a constant threat. Keeping complete control, there is no point protecting yourself if you will lose privacy in the process of protecting yourself, which is quite often the case with some protection methods, and it has to be reliable at all times. It's important that with especially coronavirus, we understand the fact that prevention, detection, response, recovery, and forensic, all of this is required in the case of biological hazards. So to prevent the virus, you need to have good hygiene. To detect it, you need to do tests. To respond, you need to have good healthcare system, and you need to have good immune system. You need to be able to recover, and you need to track the origins of the virus to be able to do prevention, detection, response, and recovery, and the origin of who actually make you sick. It's not so different in the digital world. You also need to do all of these 5 things: prevention, detection, response, recovery, and forensic. And that's what we do with Acronis Cyber Protection. You do combination of things like vulnerability assessment, patch management, smart protection plans to prevent anything from happening. You don't really need and want to have anything happening. You need to detect if something is happening very, very quickly and respond very, very quickly. And if you were not able to respond very quickly, you need to recover, and then you need to do forensic to not have it repeated again. Very similar situation, very clear for everybody today already with biological hazards. Hopefully would be as clear with cyber hazards, because it is what you need to do to continue to be operational. And so that is what we do in Acronis. Very simple, single flight view of Acronis. We provide cyber protection for cyber customers, enabling safety, accessibility, privacy, authenticity, and security for every customer workload. We provide it through cyber partners who use Acronis Cyber Cloud to automate their activities. We base it on Acronis Cyber Platform, which allows to extend cyber protection with support of different workloads, support of different workload destination, different workload policies, which can be done by third parties or can be done by service providers, our partners, and extending cyber cloud for themselves. It is based on Acronis cyber infrastructure, and we intend to have over 300 Acronis cyber data centers in over 100 countries all over the world in the near future. Today, we're only in 11 countries, and there is about 20 data centers and about 3,000 partner data centers. So almost everywhere next to you, you will have the location for the workload to be protected, which is very important for you to keep control of your workload. And we top it up with Acronis Cyber Services, which allows to extend the offering we have, closing every gap, giving us expertise and mind share. And also we have Acronis CyberFit Academy as part of Acronis Cyber Services, enabling us to educate and certify every kind of user, end user, Acronis Cyber Partner, Acronis Cyber Developer, to be benefiting and to be able to offer or to be able to use Acronis Cyber Protection. So here's how we see the situation, which we see it to be similar, not just for us, but also for our partners. So first of all, we and our partners are built for remote work. We were already in 33 locations. Over 80% of our employees, closer probably to 90%, work with some remote teams. So switching to remote in many senses made us more productive, not less productive. We believe that opportunity for all of us is growing. In the new world, cyber protection becomes a must for every workload, and especially cyber protection through service providers, and especially complete cyber protection per se, because people really need to focus on their business, not on something which is secondary, being protected, but being protected is required for them to continue with their business. We always provided the software which is the easiest to use, and now it's very important because people don't have time. That is both our partners and our customers. Very cost efficient, which is again very important because the major threat of this virus is really the economic threat. So you need to save money, and it's extremely secure. That is verified by our very strong Q1. We actually are over budget on the cloud business in Q1, growing 88%, adding 550 new service providers, which is 10% extra new service providers. And we're on track to grow almost 100% in Q2, again, above our target. And we believe that is the same for every partner of Acronis who is Acronis Cloud partner. We also have classic partners. One of the things we want to do right now, and we're offering very actively through Acronis CyberFit Academy, is to help Acronis classic partners to convert to become cloud partners. So there is exciting future coming for you. We have released new products. The most important thing in this future is, of course, Acronis Cyber Protect. So what can you do in these challenging times as Acronis partner? I think an Acronis customer, an Acronis employee, there is really these 5 things. So first of all, it's important to make sure that you're healthy. It was always important. To some extent, this virus is a reminder how little we like to be sick and how little we like to have a risk to die from something which is unnecessary and untimely. And so doing all the things, having healthy habits, sleeping well, having high immune system, monitoring your symptoms and getting tested, it's always good. The second thing, which is extremely important right now, is to make money. The main threat of this particular virus, it is not so deadly, lucky for us, is a threat which is related to economy. Economies are down in every country. Economies are suffering very difficult, in very serious ways in variety of industries, and especially in some countries which are most affected. And so in order for you to continue, you need to make money. And so for that, you need to continue selling or marketing our products as part of what you do. For that, you need to be able to set up for remote work. Yes, of course, we might go back to office work, but it seems that you can work very, very successfully, productively at home. And so making it more and more productive, learning how to work from home as if there is no other way has no limit. We also offer trainings. We believe it's a time for trainings. You can always train to improve your skills. And again, one more time, most important thing, you can really have two choices. Either you market and sell Acronis Cyber Protect. The alternative, you can consider signing up for Elon Musk Mars mission. You can move to Mars. There is not so much chance that COVID-19 will move to Mars. If you stay on the Earth, the best thing for you to do, if you're a Acronis partner, is to sell Acronis Cyber Protect. On that point, I want to actually have an opportunity to remind you this product, which we just launched on May 5th, just recently, only 15 days ago, even though for me it looks like already, several months ago, is this 4 sensor. First of all, I'm not going to talk about this too much. It's a beta backup. So it's not just a new security product, but it's a better way to do backup. You use Cyber Backup today, you can change to Cyber Protect for free. And Cyber Protect provides you a better way to do data protection. Proactive protection is included. You can do vulnerability assessment and patch management now, not only for the benefit of security, but also for the benefit of safety, accessibility, privacy, and authenticity. You can make sure that your backups are secure and remove malware from backups if it would be found later. And you can prevent, in such way, infections from reoccurring. You can have active protection. So again, you don't need to wait for something to fail to recover. And there are a number of features in Cyber Protect which were not available in Cyber Backup, which are now available to you. And it also includes reactive protection, which is better, such as integrated disaster recovery, instant recovery, in case of security attacks, which typically do not break too much data. It can be recovered in a background, and you can do much better with forensic investigations, both for the benefit of security, so you can find out what happened, and for the benefits of safety as well, so you can actually make sure that your system not only secure but doesn't break, which is again extremely important for managed service providers, which are our main partners, which makes them more productive. More productive means being able to serve more customers, protect more customers in the current challenging times, and make more money. In addition to that, the product was specifically designed for better integration with third-party security products. Because we have included our security, we provide much better ways to integrate with third-party products in terms of security. Any third-party products, we manage some of them. Some of them you will manage in a traditional way, but we can integrate better. We also are designed better to integrate with third-party RMM. Today, we have some very basic RMM in the product, which is sufficient for a small MSP, but for large MSPs, we recommend one of those guys. We integrate well with ConnectWise, Automate, Kaseya, and Atera, and we can integrate with many others written integration themselves using our open API. And if you're a larger service provider, we also believe we have a very good APIs and integration capabilities with professional service automation packages, such as, again, ConnectWise, Autotask, Kaseya, and many, many others. We also believe if something is missing in terms of integration with Cyber Protect and Cyber Platform, you're fully enabled to integrate it themselves, again, making you more productive and again, allowing you to support more workload per technician, protect more customers in a better fashion. With that, it's important that the product includes complete and best in the industry security for service providers for small deployments. So today, it is on par or better than our competition. There are many unique features on subsequent slide. As we move forward, with every month's release, you will get new features, and these new features will end up providing you enterprise level, top-notch, very, very modern security with things like zero trust assessment and management, vulnerability assessment and patch management, and many other things integrated. So it's hands down better than Symantec and Webroot, and it comes to you in a single UI. You don't need to pay extra for it, and it comes to you also in a single UI. You don't need to manage it extra. You don't need to buy it extra. It's really much easier, and today it's also providing you better protection with these unique features. So again, better protection for collaboration applications, which is very important. We constantly specifically monitor those applications, and we make sure that they're better protected. We also include some unique features to make sure that your system proactively doesn't fail. And we warn you about possible failures, no matter why, security or safety, are much more costly today. Much better security, many unique things like artificial intelligence-based injection detection, which is one of the ways how people penetrate your customer workloads today, and other things like entropy analysis, unique things like rootkit detection in scanning cold backup data. Detecting rootkits in a hot workload is much harder because rootkits are very effectively hiding in memory. They are not visible on disk, and they're hiding from antiviruses. They cannot hide in the cold data, and many other things. It's also much more efficient. You can actually do very intensive scans of your customer data many times on the backup data, not on the production, without making customer upset. You can do fail-safe patch management. Again, bringing all this back to a better productivity for MSP, hence more workloads protected per technician, hence less customer churn, hence potential for growth because you can actually sell more protection to more customers. So I want to remind you that we not only do that, but we also have Acronis Cyber Fit Initiative and Acronis Cyber Foundation. We build schools, which we are trying to build more right now. Of course, it's easy for us. I'm in Singapore right now. In fact, Kosti is in Singapore as well. Acronis is all over the world. And Singapore is a wealthy country. Everything's fine here. Everything's fine in our second headquarters, but there is many places where knowledge is the only way for people to survive. We do other things with that. We are still supporting our sports team as we started this event with Arsenal. Especially today, sports teams are much more dependent on data. They're trying to do much more engagement with their fans with data. It is a question how the sports will go on in the future and how much of the stadium visits will convert into virtual visits. We are going to be crazy this year about CyberFit. We want to make everything CyberFit. Partners, customers, employees, dogs, cats, and we are also crazy about our origins. We are a Singapore founded company. We want to always remind you about Acronis mascot, Acronis Cyber Dragon, 5-headed safety, accessibility, privacy, authenticity, and security dragon. With that, I want to have my last slide talking about what can you do now. And I want to just talk to you about the fact that the most important thing for our partners today and for you as employees or as customers is to continue to make money. One way we offer to you to make money is if you are Acronis partner, you can actually become a cloud partner and sell a lot of cyber protection. If you are not, any of you can become an MSP. Perhaps after my exciting talk, Kostya will decide to switch from science to just offer cyber protection. I doubt that, but anybody of you can make money. This crisis is primarily about money. And the way this crisis affects the economy, affects your business is unprecedented. It hasn't happened before. It hasn't happened in the 48 years I am on this earth, and it hasn't happened in the 28 years I'm in business, no other crisis, not 2001, not 2008, as comparable to that. We're still going to see some results. The second thing important is that once all these quarantine measures are released, you have to make sure that you stay alert. And there are these 4 things I can recommend. One of them is make sure that you improve your hygiene. It's always good to improve hygiene. It's not pleasant to be sick with cold, with diarrhea, with flu, with any other disease. It's not good for your long-term health and ability to live long on this earth. So it's better to take care of your hygiene. It's also important to take care of your health, exercise, sleep, maintain your healthy habits, make sure that the immune system is relatively prepared, perhaps test your immune system. Apparently, if you are not healthy, that's when you have the most risk from this virus and other viruses. Stay prepared with supplies. You know, it's good to have supplies prepared today because it's not clear that this wave is gone forever. It's possible that quarantine will go back. This is sort of very aggressive picture on my side. I just watched a movie about Galapagos. Galapagos has a very interesting way how things evolve. Then they evolve much faster on Galapagos. They had a lot of turtles. Apparently, turtles were used by pirates as a best supply because turtles, they can survive without food for months. And so if you're worried about meat, just buy some turtles. Apparently, they can live for several months, and if you run out of meat and they stop selling meat and other food on the internet, you can just eat the turtles. You don't have to feed them. It's amazing reason why Galapagos turtles were almost disappearing. Don't worry, right now there are 15,000 turtles in Galapagos. And if not, I also suggest you explore some treatments. This is a treatment which we suggest to explore. It's a social experiment. We don't know if it works. This is a green tea inhalation. I think Kostya might mention it in his speech. And with that, I'm sort of completing it. I think future is generally bright. I think this virus has not been so bad. It made this humanity more alert and perhaps better prepared for more serious challenges. That's it. Thank you very much. James?
Thanks for that, Sergey. Turtle, I had not considered that. I'm actually a fan of it. I've tried it, but
it's 600 pounds of meat. It's pretty good.
It is delicious. Don't go away, Sergey. We're going to need you back at the end for the Q&A session. Next up, let me remind you that we do have 3 more sessions here, including the professor, my colleague Candid, and then Q&A at the end. I'd also like to remind you that in spite of the fact that we were talking about experimental therapies related to COVID-19, you should not construe our discussion as medical advice. All right, with that, it's now my great pleasure to introduce Professor Sir Konstantin Novoselov, who is a fellow of the Royal Society of London. He was awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics in 2010 for his achievements with graphene. Every year since 2014, he's been among the most cited researchers in the world. He also serves as chairman of the advisory board for the Schaffhausen Institute of Technology. Welcome, Professor. I consulted with my my protocol and etiquette specialist, which is basically my sister who watches a lot of Downton Abbey, and she suggests that you should formally be referred to as Sir Konstantin. I hope you don't mind if I just call you Professor.
That's great. So that's if you can call me a researcher, even that's even better. So we still do active work in the lab. So that's my favorite spending of time.
Fantastic. I have a bunch of questions for you. I have many colleagues at Acronis, many friends outside of work who are very accomplished scientists and researchers, but you're the first Nobelist and knight that I've ever met. So it's a little intimidating, but quite the honor. I understand the work that kind of is your real claim to fame that led to your Nobel Prize was in graphene, but you've moved beyond that to other 2D materials. Before we talk about your current work around COVID, maybe you could catch our audience up a little bit on what you've been doing in the traditional 2D materials world.
That's correct. Thanks a lot for the introduction, first of all. That's very right. The most work which we've been doing over the last years was on graphene. So graphene is the first two-dimensional crystal. It's only 1 atom thick, and yet it has a number of very interesting properties. It's the thinnest possible material, is the strongest. It's very conductive, thermally conductive, transparent, you name it. And because of that, people, many scientists in many labs across the globe have been studying this material for many years now, and continue to research it, and we keep finding very unusual properties, physical phenomena in this material. But also simultaneously, we figure it out that graphene is not the only two-dimensional crystal. It's not the only material which can be obtained in 1 atom thick form. And we also started to investigate other two-dimensional materials, and it's really exciting to study those, because physics in 2 dimensions, when the material doesn't have thickness, it only has the weights and the lengths, the properties of such materials are very different from the properties of the materials of the 3D materials which we used to deal with in day-to-day life. So in 2-dimensional crystals, the topology is different. You cannot have knots in those materials, and then it really leads to a number of unique phenomena. But then some time ago, what we figured out that if you have a library of those 2-dimensional crystals which are only 1 atom thick, so what you can do is to take those libraries, just treat them as, say, pages in a book, and then build them together on one on top of each other, and create, rather than individual pages, you create a full book out of this. We call such artificial 3-dimensional materials, 3-dimensional stacks, heterostructures. And then you can imagine, you can combine different materials in such heterostructures, so you can actually encode certain properties, certain information in such artificial materials. And that's been a very active direction of research, how to create artificial materials with predetermined properties. And that's really one of the probably most studied direction of scientific research in the world now. It would be nice to stop here, but actually we go even beyond that. So we try to create such heterostructures in a very in some intelligent way. So the properties of those heterostructures are not fixed, but depend on the environment. So those materials are agile. They respond to the environment. They can remember what happened to them. They have memory, so they have some intelligence. And it really opened a doorway for the new direction of research, which only starting now, and that's about the intelligent material. So why do we want to bring intelligence on the material level? Sergei mentioned in his talk that he is very happy with his intelligent vacuum cleaner. In fact, my close ones, they don't believe that those vacuum cleaners are more intelligent than myself. So I still have to do all the cleaning by myself. But you can apparently, in principle, you can distribute this intelligence and bring some to the level of material. So you don't need separate sensors and separate CPUs. You can combine everything and distribute it on the material level. So the very frame of this vacuum cleaner acts as a sensor and makes some decision. And that's the direction of research which we are pursuing now, because with the start of the COVID pandemic, we had to redirect our work more towards COVID research, and that's what we're doing now. And we just think as physicists, what can we do to help people? And one of the idea which was proposed by my colleague and my teacher and my friend Andrei Gaim in the University of Manchester is to use saponins, for example, to protect us against COVID.
So I'm a layman on this this kind of subject, but I understand that one of the reasons that hand washing is so important fighting the coronavirus is though it has some of those same amphiphilic compounds that actually attack the virus's outer layer of fat and proteins and help it dissolve in water and help you wash it off your hands. So obviously it's not destroying the virus entirely, but you know, it is washing it off where you might touch your face or transfer it to surfaces where other people can catch it. Am I correct in understanding that sort of amphiphilic action in soap similar to what you're hoping that green tea treatment might do to help deter the virus?
Yes, that's very much correct, and so that was the pure physics thinking, or physicist thinking from my colleague Andrei Gaim. So how can we kill the virus? And one of the ways is indeed, as you mentioned, to use soap. So why soap works? Soap works because it consists of the amphiphilic molecules. Amphiphilic means that one side of this molecule likes to be in water, another side likes to be in grease, in fat, and that's why soap is really useful to wash grease from your hands, because those molecules attach to the to fat on your hands, and then the other side likes to be in water, and they just get washed very efficiently. But also such molecules are quite readily can penetrate into the lipid membranes of the bacteria or viruses, which those which have the lipid membrane, and then can destroy it as well. And again, that's one of the reasons why there is probably one of the most efficient ways how you can protect yourself against viruses, to keep your personal hygiene and wash hands and your face regularly with soap. But then what happens if the virus already gets inside of your nose or mouth and the upper respiratory tract? Can we kill it before it gets to our lungs? And because it would be very uncomfortable for us to wash the inside of your mouth and nose with soap, what can you do? Apparently, there are natural sources of those amphiphilic molecules. There is a group of amphiphilic molecules called saponins, and there are many products which are natural products which are rich in those molecules in saponins. Green tea is one of them, and probably as one of the preventive treatments, what you can do is to breathe a little bit of green tea vapor, and then hopefully the saponins which are inside of the green tea can go on around those viruses which are already in your nose and mouth, and kill them before they get into your lungs. So it might be efficient once you come back from a long work outside. So just breathe it for a few minutes with the vapor of green tea, which contains saponins, and maybe it might help you to stay protected. Of course, same as any other preventive measures, it's not a guarantee, it's not a full remedy, but at least it might decrease the chances of contaminating yourself with the virus.
It's fascinating. So you're obviously a groundbreaking physicist and nanotechnologist. You've got a Nobel Prize. Only a couple hundred people in history have ever gotten that. But you're not a virologist. You're not an immunologist. You're not an epidemiologist. You're not proposing this as some kind of panacea, right? This is just an experimental avenue of research. And as I understand it, you're not conducting the classic sort of clinical trial that medical professionals do, but rather it's a social clinical trial. I wondered if you could help our audience understand exactly what a social clinical trial is about and how you hope that might potentially lead to a COVID therapy or prophylactic measure.
Well, that's correct. And once this pandemic started, as everybody of us, we thought, how can we help people in this difficult situation? And I have a number of projects running in my lab on various aspects of COVID research. And as I mentioned already, Andrew Geim came with this proposal, with the use of saponins to as a preventive treatment against the coronavirus. Of course, it's any remedy has to be tested. The problem is all the labs across the globe are extremely busy at the moment providing help to the patients. So it's very difficult to do the proper clinical trial. At the same time, we believe that if used mildly as a preventive treatment, similar as washing your hands, people can do the so-called the social clinical trial. So what we're trying to do is to gather enough people across the globe to use these treatments few minutes a day, not overdoing this. And I should repeat the disclaimer, even though people use the green tea vapor across the globe. When you drink tea, you actually breathe a lot of vapor already. It's still some small number of people might get allergic to it. So please, if you feel anything unusual, stop doing this. So we hope that so many people across the globe will start using this, and we'll get a control group as well, and then using an app, just register and tell us that you're using this and you don't get sick, or you're using this and you actually got sick, unfortunately, with the virus. And we're just trying to gather enough statistics to figure out if it indeed helps to bring it to the proper clinical trial later on.
I thank you for that. Before we wrap up here, I'm curious about how the pandemic has, personally affected you and your work. I know, for example, you've probably spent a lot of time in recent years traveling around the world to guest lecture at universities or conferences or symposia. How are you managing your personal and professional life in this new reality, and what sort of strategies have you adopted to cope with it?
Well, of course, it's that's very much true. We started to travel less, fortunately or unfortunately. Also, unfortunately, both labs in Singapore and in Manchester are closed now. I'm probably the only person in the university, a part of clinicians who is allowed to come to the lab. Myself plus three more researchers who are working in my group, and we work on. We're only allowed to work on the COVID related projects, but I think it is good. It gives us opportunity to apply our recipes and our thinking, which is we're coming from the basic physics rationale here to fight this virus. And we have several projects here. A part of what I mentioned already, this social clinical trial on saponins, on the green tea. We also work on developing of the smart materials which can actively kill the virus, and developing coatings and surfaces which on which viruses cannot survive for any extended period of time. And we do it based on our smart materials. So we basically load those materials with acids, and they only release the acids upon arrival of the virus molecule, of the virus. We also try to make sensors based on those materials. So our intelligent materials not only actively kill the virus, it also signals that virus is there, and that may be able to counter. So we had to redivert our research entirely. We also have to work separately. So we're 4 of us in the group, and we work all in different buildings, just passing the samples from one side to another in secret locations, like in the spy movies, so not to interact with each other, not to keep social distancing. So it's but we just find it interesting, and we find it important as well to give our contribution to this global fight.
Thank you so much for that, Professor. Really appreciate the time that you took to share your new line of research with us. Please don't go too far away. We would love to have you back for a little bit of Q&A at the end. But really, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
With that, I would like to show you, our audience, another look at the agenda here. We just have 2 more sessions. Please keep your questions coming in through the Zoom Q&A interface. We've got a bunch of them already, but we really appreciate those. It's now my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Candid Wüest, who is Acronis's Vice President for Cyber Protection Research. In that role, he researches new threat trends and comprehensive protection methods beyond classic antivirus techniques. Previously, he worked for more than 16 years as the tech lead for Symantec's Global Security Response Team. He's published many articles and research papers, and is an advisor to the federal government of Switzerland on cyber risks. Over to you, Candid.
Thank you, James. And also welcome to everyone from my side. I mean, it's my pleasure to talk to you about the working from home and the challenges that we see there, right? After hearing all the challenges we have to stay healthy in the biological sense. And I guess if you are one of those people who can actually work from home because their job allows it, then you probably have been doing so for the last few weeks, right? I mean, most of the companies started to do shifting back to working from home in March, maybe depending on where you're located. And you probably also faced a few of those challenges with working from home, starting with finding a nice quiet space, or making yourself comfortable at the kitchen table. But there are also a few IT challenges that hopefully you are also aware of. Because if you do work at home, that means most likely you are using a private laptop to do so. I've talked to a few companies which try to get a new laptop to every employee that is now working from home, but the demand was just so high that actually they could not satisfy the demand. So they could not get their hands on enough laptops. So they had to use the bring your own device approach and actually allow privately, and that also means unmanaged devices into their corporate network, or at least extended network coming from the home. And because it's no longer managed by IT, that means you as the owner, you as the administrator, you have to make sure that it's updated all the patches are on it, that you're actually running some security software, that you're making backups and everything to protect your workload from any harm. And yes, if you have been working with a desktop at the corporate network, you probably have had the luxury of being protected from a gateway security firewall or IPS, which of course all is missing if you're at home. At home, it's more likely that you're trusted in a Wi-Fi network, which also has a few other devices, like maybe the laptop of your son, which you don't really know what he's downloading, maybe a few games, maybe some are compromised with viruses. And there's also a few smart devices, right? I mean, maybe it's the smart vacuum cleaner, which actually is on the same Wi-Fi, and depending on how smart it really is, it might start attacking your device. Well, most likely it's not a conscious being, but it's just because it's compromised by another virus. And the question there is, when was the last time you actually checked the router configuration or the Wi-Fi configuration at your home? Probably not this year, right? But probably not last year either. So how can you be sure that there's no updates, that the configuration is still secure, and that you're not just missing something? So maybe change that. I know changing the Wi-Fi password is really, really cumbersome, because then you have to change it with all the other devices as well. And your neighbors probably will hate you because they no longer have free access. But still, making sure that all your home environment is actually secure is important. And of course, we are now also talking about downloading information, right? Maybe you're working on some sensitive information, some information that your company is kind of providing to you, like financial data or customer data. And this is now on your machine at home. So where do you do actually the backup? Do it to a USB disk, which is attached to it, and then just laying around, or maybe it's the same one you use for storing all your photos from long distance vacations? Well, it has to be protected, right? Because the information now is outside of the corporation. And last but not least, there's of course also the issue with bandwidth. I mean, fingers crossed that I'm not running out of bandwidth here at the moment, but if people are, let's say, streaming movies in the background while you try to do a video podcast, that might already limit yourself. If you're also trying to upload your backup, that might already get another hit of your bandwidth. So there are a few IT challenges that you have to solve. But there's also the human factor to keep in mind. And with human factor, I mean, a lot of the people that do work from home now, they probably did not choose to do so, right? I mean, they might be happy now, but it was just, there was no other way, right? Because the offices had to close down. It was a lockdown imposed depending on the region you're in. So they might be a bit inexperienced, but still have administrative rights on the machine. And we all know now if something is not working, maybe the VPN does not connect, they don't really want to call up the IT services for help. So more likely they will just open up the settings, click on any and all of the buttons and checkboxes till it actually works again. And then probably forget about it and never talk about it. But that means maybe they're actually changing something that they shouldn't change, right? Maybe they're making the system weaker because they just don't really know. And I'm not really blaming that it's done on purpose, right? There's kind of two sides that we see at the moment. On one end, there's the employees which are under a lot of stress, might be because a lot of work that has to be catched up, or might be because of job uncertainty. So they're unsure if they actually will have a job going out of the pandemics, or because of children screaming in the background, which doesn't really help to keep calm. On the other hand, you also got those who are bored because maybe they cannot work, but they still are at home, locked down. So a lot of people start downloading new apps, right? Tracing app is one thing, but maybe games, maybe other things. And there's the danger that you download something that you shouldn't. Maybe it's a Trojan horse, maybe it's a ransomware, which will then start encrypting all your files. We also see that more and more people are doing online shopping at the moment. And specifically, if you're bored of cooking yourself, maybe an increase in food delivery, right? Takeout menus. But are you sure you're on the right site? Or maybe it's a phishing website, just trying to get your credit cards, your passwords and everything. So there's a lot of danger out there. And unfortunately, the human factor also kind of reduces the whole overall security, because we have seen people weakening their own passwords because they get asked 3, 4, 5 times a day to log into the VPN or log into email with the password again, because there's no single sign-on, or the IT department made the time to live quite short, so the session actually terminate, which is a good thing. But of course, that leads to people choosing weak and short passwords because they're tired of typing in a 16-character passwords with umlauts and everything each time. So it kind of has two sides and has to be balanced for a good security to work, right? Because otherwise, you're just going to run into unsecure workloads at home. Next slide. So the big question, of course, is what will change when we move back into the office? And hopefully the lockdown will be over soon and we can start kind of moving back. But the big question also is, do we actually move back at all, right? It's kind of the new norm to work from home, although for most employees, it's anything but normal. But yeah, I mean, there's a few studies which say about 30 up to 50% actually would prefer to stay at home, at least for a few days during the week, and do work from home. I guess the other half is probably those who have been homeschooling kids at the moment and are dying to get a day away at the calm office just to kind of get some work done. I mean, there's always the two sides of the medal, I'd say. But if you do stay in a work from home environment, and Sergei mentioned it, it can actually be quite productive, right? We have learned now it's actually not that bad having the people working from home if you have the video conferencing, the meetings and everything still going on. But that means now the temporary settings that you made, they now become permanent. So you have to revisit those, make sure that everything that you actually want to be there is inside those permanent ones, and not anything which you just done because you had to do it overnight and didn't really have the time to figure out how to do it right. Make also sure that you have the right tools, software and hardware with those people, right? Maybe you need to ship them a laptop if you really want to be sure that it's a managed device. Maybe install some security software like Acronis Cyber Protect on those machines so you can efficiently manage those and integrate them in your corporate network. But also try to get webcams, microphones and everything which might be needed at the moment. I mean, I ordered a webcam 5 weeks ago and I'm still waiting for it. So it's not as easy as it used to be because you cannot just go down to the shop and get one. On the other hand, if you move back, you probably should review all the changes you made. And hopefully you actually documented what you changed. If not, well, actually, even if you do, probably it's time for another risk assessment of your whole organization just to check how exposed are all your devices and workloads? How exposed are those credentials, those informations of those records? And then depending on this, you might need to kind of add a few things to lock it down as it should be. It might also be a good idea now to check for the licenses if you move back after the lockdown, because maybe you added a few more VPN connections. Maybe you added a few more remote control software, which you do no longer need if those machines are actually now in your organization or if you just decommissioned them altogether. So have that in mind. And of course, since data is the quote unquote oil of the new generation, you have to make sure that this data inside and outside of your organization is actually protected where it needs to be, right? So make sure that, and hopefully you already did that, have a sanctioned and centralized collaboration tool that you can use to share information, as in sharing files with coworkers, with partners and other people. So the Acronis file access is what we recommend, a secure way to share information, store them without having to attach them to any emails and so on. Also, maybe revisit all those cloud services that you started now. We know that in times of crisis where your IT department probably gets a cut on the budget, a lot of services are now started because they're dynamic, they can be easily updated and integrated. So it's actually a nice way to save money, but it also means that you might lose visibility, right? Do you really know what information has been shared by all your employees to the cloud? Did you actually check all of those? Or maybe, well, the information is just shared on some third-party server, maybe even on the backups on the USB drive that I mentioned. So make sure that you have those under control, and also enable two-factor authentication wherever possible, because those cloud services, they are of course under constant attacks from the attackers, because they know everyone's moving there. They might not have the experience. So that's their prime time to attack the data, even though they probably should care about pandemics. They only care about profits, so they definitely will attack you. And of course, it's not just about data, it's also about the machines, the workloads. So if you do move back and you say, I'm no longer using those private laptops, thanks again for sponsoring those. Well, how can you actually make sure to delete those data, right? How can you remotely wipe the information? Or can you actually, maybe there are some private information from the user, so you have to trust them, or at least have a process to ensure that all the sensitive information is removed from those devices. If you're moving back, also review all the services. Like a lot of laptops, they just have remote desktop protocol, RDP, enabled at the moment, so that you can access them, maybe do some management, but that's not necessarily a secure way, right? Maybe there is actually a weak password and the attackers can just guess it and get access, which is definitely not something you want to have. So make sure that you can actually restrict those settings again, maybe add VPN, maybe IP block lists. And of course, for that, you also need to know which systems you actually have. So do you have the visibility of all your systems? Maybe not, right? And last but not least, it's important to be productive, right? Regardless of if you stay at home and work from there, or if you actually move back to the office, you should stay productive. And that also means, as Sergei mentioned, the data has to be available whenever you need it, has to be secured, that you can access at the time, but only you, to actually be able to work with it. So make sure that all those safeguards are in place to protect the sensitive information from all the services on all your workloads, because that's what you can use now to actually gain a momentum out of the pandemic and actually use that to grow your business. So again, make sure that you have a collaboration tool like the Acronis File Access, which is secured and trusted, and also that the user know about it, know how to share files, how to communicate with each other, because otherwise most people are actually quite smart in figuring out some ways. They will use some WhatsApp group to share files, WeTransfer, or any of those services, because they want to be productive, right? If you don't give them the tools, they will come up with their own solution, which unfortunately usually is not the secure way, because they just want to get it done. They don't really care too much about the security, at least in many cases. Also make sure that you know about how to update all those devices. So if they stay at home or if they come back to the office, make sure that you check them for any missing updates, check the security and protection software for any missing updates, so that you can quickly bring them to a healthy and secure state. And of course, there will be some soft factors which have changed as well, like meetings, right? At the moment, I do a lot of video calls. We try to keep them short, as in 20 minutes, to be productive but still efficient. And if you move back and some people are still at home, maybe you have to do mixed meetings, right? So maybe you need a big screen and a camera in the office as well to interact. So those are things you should think about before you actually move back, because otherwise you're just going to lose another week, which is the first week you move back to the office, right? And most people already lost enough productivity, so you don't want to end up with those. Next slide. So as you can see, there's a lot of different things and disciplines that you have to keep in mind in order to protect yourself and your workloads. And to facilitate this, Acronis did launch the Acronis Cyber Protect solution. And as already mentioned, it's a unique product which integrates different aspects like backup discipline, anti-malware, patch management, remote access, and many other features all into one solution managed from one console from one vendor, which of course allows you to gain back some time because of the efficiency of managing all those solutions from just one console. And then you can concentrate on your core competence and maybe look at that project that you always wanted to kind of gain traction for acquiring new contacts and customers, right? And we're the only one to be able to have this unique solution with the ability to actually correlate over those different disciplines. So we're looking at an integration across safety, accessibility, privacy, authenticity, and security, or in short, SAPAS. And all of this, of course, automated with artificial intelligence supported background so that we can cover the flood of new threats, which are automated as well. I mean, make no mistake about it. The attackers, they take advantage of this. They do automate their attacks to scale it up. So you as a defender, you have to automate as well. You don't want to be clicking on millions of alerts every day. You only want to know about the big things that actually really you have to do some manual interaction. All the other things should automatically be taken care of, for example, with the Acronis Cyber Protect solution. So you can rest assured with our solution that we can cover you against ransomware threats, even if they're new, making sure that you're not losing any data, even if they would be able to execute beyond behavior-based detection or machine learning algorithms. And of course, we're also protecting productivity apps like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, making sure that no one can hijack those applications to maybe use an exploit and drop some Trojan horse on your machine, which will then spy on whatever you do, or trash the whole system, which definitely would ruin your overall productivity, I guess. So if you want to learn more about the Acronis Cyber Protect solution, please come to acronis.com, learn about more, get some information or start a trial there. And I hope that you give us a chance to actually prove to yourself that we can help you to stay cyber fit during the pandemic and of course also beyond the pandemic. So thanks for that, and back to you, James.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you very much for that, Candid. I always appreciate a security presentation that includes a lot of practical tips like yours. I'd like to invite our other speakers back to the stage for our final Q&A session. I know we're running a little long. I hope our audience can stick around a little bit for these very impressive talents. And we've got a great bunch of questions from the audience as well. Gents, be sure to turn on your microphones and cameras, please, so the audience can see you.
Yeah, I'm on, but you should let the host, this is Sergei, to give me back my camera view. So for some reason, my view is stopped.
All right, let's go ahead while we figure that out.
Okay.
There we go. Then we can see the boss now. I think this is one for the professor. Aren't saponins toxic? And don't normal cells have lipid shells? Wouldn't the compound damage them as well?
Of course. So that's saponins are toxic, but as any molecules, and if you use them in excess. Well, saponins. There are also saponins in your body, and those proteins which act as saponins, they are there in your body partly to fight the viruses coming into your lungs, partly to help them to operate, not to collapse, and but of course anything in excess would be toxic. What we are trying to propose is to find a solution which is natural. Millions of people use green tea every day, and we just try to suggest people the natural remedy. So something which, if you use for 3-5 minutes every day, might help you to stay healthy. But again, it's important to mention that if a small number of people will be allergic to green tea as well, if you feel anything unusual, stop drinking green tea and just restrain yourself from this treatment.
If you don't mind, I want to add that a lot of people use inhalations with the green tea already. So it must not be too toxic. So it's not something which is new. They use it for different purposes, but I have not read of any super negative reaction. If you inhale anything for too long, too hard, even air, that might be not good for you. But green tea should be relatively safe.
Well, so that was the reason why we chose green tea here.
Thank you, gents. We've had several mentions of robots. Would Acronis and the Schaffhausen Institute support potential research into robotics and systems which would try to automate disinfection and/or are self-disinfecting for applications in hospitals, public transport, office environments, and other highly public spaces? That's an interesting question.
So yeah, can I maybe start and then you
okay,
continue?
Go ahead.
So I think it's a very good question, but also I would like to take it to expand it as well, because what we understand with robots is actually changing all the time. It was a very good example of Sergei with the robotic dog for the robot with the robotic vacuum cleaner. So robots is something which can act and up to a certain routine independently from human, and can perform certain functions humans usually do. And in this sense, what we're trying to do is to create those robotic functions and give them to some unusual objects. Like any material can act as a robot, because we can assign certain functionality to it. And it was a good question: can robots perform cleaning and antivirus cleaning? So what we're trying to do is to create materials which have those robotic functions, which can act according to a certain program which we can load into them and do those simple functions like self-cleaning, killing viruses according to the internal program.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'll just share one slide about Acronis Institute, Schaffhausen Institute of Technology, sorry, just one slide, just to be a background. That's a research institution which we start in, and Kosti is our chairman of the board. That's the areas of research. As you can see, one of the areas is robotics and autonomous machines. One of the divisions of the university and this cluster is division which is called SIT Autonomous. And SIT Autonomous, you don't see it because this is just a PDF, but it participates in autonomous racing, and it's just started building a robot for disinfection. For disinfection, it's a great topic. There is many other things you can do autonomous with robots. It's actually interesting, but this whole there's two related points in my presentation. One of them is about evolution. So robots are evolving very quickly. There is no predators which attack robots. And so they're evolving very quickly in a very strange way. We were looking for a platform for this research in the area of autonomous disinfection robot. I would believe that the best platform is actually this vacuum cleaner, because there is a lot of vacuum cleaners. The population of vacuum cleaners is spreading very, very quickly, and they are actually multiplying. They do it without sex. So
they're not
it's
reproducing.
completely, they are not reproducing. They do it. However, it sounds like this particular robot does it with the help of the Chinese. So it might be a clone robot. They all look very similar, and they're very advanced, and they could be actually modified into be doing disinfections. And so it's a good question. We're going to do a lot of other research. Again, robot is a general term, which Kostya said. one way is to think about the robot in a traditional way as a machine, but another thing is to make a very small robot. One basic robot, which is base for all, is our DNA. It's a robot. It's a very advanced robot. It has 200 billion atoms. It executes it. It assembles itself to James Levy, who actually can talk and moderate the show. Go on, James, with more questions.
Thanks for that, Sergey. I'm going to take the baton back here. There we go. I think this one's for Candid, and it's about cryptoviruses, meaning ransomware. How do you prevent cryptoviruses from compromising backups both locally and in the cloud?
Yeah, so ransomware is still one of the biggest threats that we see at the moment. And we not only stop it by the classical antivirus mechanisms like signatures or kind of analyzing it before it starts, we also observe the behavior on disk. So whenever some application tries to modify data, we actually cache whatever is before it. And if we see that it's trying to encrypt something because the entropy now looks like encrypted data, or because it's just suspicious in the way it does it, we can block that, kill that process, and then revert back to the state before, so you don't lose any data. And of course, we also protect our own backup files locally from any modification, because ransomware usually tries to delete backups as a natural kind of starting point. And the same goes for cloud. In the cloud, you of course should also have a two-factor authentication for your administrative account, because otherwise, if someone manages to guess the password because you're not using a sophisticated password, otherwise they could log in and maybe delete the backups or kind of revert it back. But maybe let me add one more thing there. Actually, ransomware nowadays, where you could say, yes, backup is enough for it, that's unfortunately no longer true. Backup is not enough to stop ransomware, because modern ransomware groups like Mace, like Sotonokibi, they all encrypt your data, but they also steal your data, which means you also have a data breach. And that's where the whole SAPAS approach comes in, where you have to protect the privacy of your data. You have to protect your workload from any malware. So dangerous times, unfortunately, but yes, we block it on multiple levels with Acronis Cyber Protect, and that's the only way to do it.
Thank you for that, Candid. I think this one's for the professor. Are there other sources of saponins besides green tea?
Again, I think there are many sources of natural products of saponins. However, different saponins, all those molecules are slightly different, and we need to make sure that we don't cause any harm, and that's why the green tea was chosen as the source of saponins. We know millions of people across the globe use it every day, so it's probably very safe. So we just recommend people not to experiment too much. Stick with the regular source of saponins. It will help you to stay healthy and protected, but it will also help the statistics as well, knowing that people use one kind of saponins, which is in the green tea.
Sergey, I think this one is a good one for you. I've heard that pandemic experts are saying that COVID is going to have a resurgence every few months for some time. How do we adjust our business continuity plan to accommodate this? When's the right time to switch back and forth between office work and remote work?
Well, one thing which is very important is that sometimes it's good to listen to experts, but this is not the time when any expert gave us any kind of reasonable predictions. So you should not listen to any experts right now. Listen to yourself, worry about everything yourself. However, having business continuity plan always good. And so it's always good to have it. especially in the current time of high uncertainty, it's better to make sure that in any circumstances your IT works. And so, you know, there is definitely simple procedures. We provide courses in it. We provide training for system administrators, for MSPs. We of course provide the wonderful product now available, CyberProtect, to do it. And you just have to have it. Interestingly enough, it's probably a good time to also think about your business continuity plan for your physical being, but digital is much easier to protect. The wonderful thing, which Candid did mention about in his answer on ransomware, we can be much better than anybody else with ransomware, is because in digital world, there is an amazing feature. You can actually keep a copy and you can restore. You can keep a copy of every byte, every bit, and you can do it in real time. So we can be much more suspicious. If you want to have a building with a security guard, which will be very suspicious, that will be very annoying building. You can never come in. Perhaps I will never be let in. Look, I don't have any hair. I might look like one of those people will help in Singapore prison. But you see, in the case of Acronis, we can hold you in the waiting room for just a few seconds, and then if it's fine, we will let you in. So it's a good idea to have business continuity plan. And for sure, there is a high chance that you will need it because of the potential resurgence of this virus or other virus or some other calamity.
Thanks for that. Here's one I think that's very relevant. Maybe Candid, you can take this one. I've heard some security pros refer to Zoom only half jokingly as malware. We need tools like this for remote work collaboration. And I know it's the cybersecurity guys' job to be paranoid, but what are the real risks with using these collaboration tools?
Yeah, I mean, there have been lots of discussion around Zoom and all the other tools, to be fair. And unfortunately, some of the talk were substantial, as in there have been exploits against Zoom, where just by looking at the link which was posted in a chat could reveal your password hash on the Windows side, which could reveal your whole password to an attacker, and then they might be able to take over your machine. And luckily, this one has been patched, but of course, there could be other vulnerabilities, and actually, if you have been traded in the black market already, that could potentially lead to code execution on your machine. So someone using those to drop some malware on your machine if you don't have CyberProtect or any other good solution. And of course, you need to protect against this. Having said that, yes, at the moment, most of the times it's just about quote unquote Zoom bombing. So when people don't put a password on their meeting, allowing anyone to come in without a waiting room, without the host admitting them, then of course there will be people just crashing the party, maybe with a mask or some annoying videos and noise playing in the background. So those things, they do happen quite a lot still, but those you can fix by looking at the security settings on the product. But even if you do those, there's still the risk that someone's gonna take over the home productivity app and kind of use it to launch malware. So you need some additional protection to lock it down. But maybe you should also think about, do you really need to discuss the plans to take over the world over Zoom? Or maybe that's something for a face-to-face discussion.
Yeah, I just want to point out that, first of all, Zoom and any other application, which is video conferencing, and any other collaboration application by definition is potentially malware, because it actually helps you to collaborate. Collaborating is very dangerous. It's dangerous digitally, is also dangerous physically. You can offend somebody. For example, today I mentioned the turtles, and there might be some turtle lovers. I love turtles, but they may think that I suggest to actually eat them. And so it's dangerous. The only way to keep your computer secure, truly secure, is to switch it off. And if you are not sure, just in case, you can also break it, potentially with a sledgehammer. After you break it with a sledgehammer, it's fully secure. Otherwise, any application can be penetrated. And because it can be, there are special tools like Acronis CyberProtect to protect them. Zoom is not, in my opinion, significantly different in that from any other application, which we have to use today for collaboration, such as Teams, such as Google Meet, such as WebEx. So if you need to work, you have to use it. And if you have to use it, use CyberProtect.
Well, I think we've already overstayed our welcome by quite a bit. So I'm going to say thank you so much, Sergei and Candid. I want to especially thank the professor for taking some valuable time out of your day today. And with that, I'd like to kind of close with just a few quick comments here. Again, please remember that we're not doctors, so do not construe anything that we've said here today as medical advice. We apologize.
And we also don't want to provide you dietary advice. I want to repeat it. Don't eat the turtles. They are protected species.
Thank you for that, Sergei. Our apologies to you if we didn't get to your questions. We had quite a bit of them. We couldn't get to all of them in the interest of time, but we will follow up with you with answers to the questions we didn't get to today, as well as that promised link to a recording of the session that we encourage you to share around with friends who couldn't attend today. Also wanted to point out a couple of programs that we have to help our partners and their customers get over the worst of the pandemic. These include free access to Acronis Cyber Files Cloud, that's our secure file sync and share solution, free capacity on Acronis Cyber Backup Cloud, and then Acronis Cyber Protect included in the price of Acronis Cyber Backup. All of these special programs going until the end of July. So we hope that will help our partners and our customers, at least in the near term here. Finally, I'd like to encourage you, if you have the means and the inclination, to please donate to the Acronis Cyber Foundation Emergency Relief Fund. The Cyber Foundation builds schools and supports education programs in emerging economies all over the world, and they are more stressed than anyone at this particular time. So any charitable contributions that you can offer there would be most appreciated. With that, I would like to say I hope you'll join us again for another in our series of ongoing virtual conferences on how to stay cyber fit. I want to thank everyone who attended here for your time and attention. Be safe, be well, be secure, everybody.